Good Friday morning, everybody. Thanks for checking into our latest Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Getting a few comments here about why we changed this title. Joe Caltabiano, that was supposed to join us, family emergency, had to cancel 20 minutes ago. So our sincere apologies for changing that. Still got some news, obviously, the latest earnings with Tilray. What'd you guys all think? Leave some comments below. We got those coming in. Clearly, the market right now, a little bit down. Is Tilray dragging this down? Curious to see what you people thought of these latest earnings and what this means for the company heading into 2025. So with that, let's welcome in AV here on a Friday morning. And yeah, we're changing on the fly here, trying to get all prepared and organized. This is what happens sometimes in showbiz. I was really looking forward to that conversation, but I am confirming that a week from today, Joe will actually be on the live stream then. So please be patient with us. We're doing what we can, but sometimes these things happen.
Yeah, I mean, shit happens. Shit happens. I mean, hopefully that everything's fine with Joe, and we'll luckily have him on next week.
We will.
Always another episode.
There's the haircut. Irish says. How long does it take to get your haircut? Is it a while?
15 minutes.
I love the one with Jeff Ross at the Shack Roast years ago when he gets his haircut. When the barber's in there, and after a while they just go, fuck it, and they drop the actual scissors because the hair is just so thick. Your hair is pretty thick, bud.
It's very thick. I'm happy.
I need to get
I am happy.
I need to go to Turkey. Maybe we can get those people on as a actual sponsor for the podcast. Yeah. Because man, one day my hair used to look like yours, but not anymore. But listen, another thing we're going to announce too, Erwin Simon is actually coming on our live stream on Monday at 4:00. So we'll get all the key takeaways. I heard some of his earnings report or call, I should say, this morning. So we'll get some more take on that. We're going to break down some of those numbers here this morning and highlight some of the notable numbers, but we're going to, further that up. Yes, it's good to have takeaways, but no other better person to explain what those numbers mean than the CEO of himself, which will be Monday at 4:00. Yeah. So that'll be a good one, right?
Yeah, I think the company strategy is unfolding. Their alcohol revenue was up double digits, I think 36% for the Q. Cannabis revenue is flat to a little bit down. Tilray is a cannabis company at the end of the day. I mean, you want to say potentially Tilray is a diversified sin stock? Sure. I want to see growth in the cannabis business.
Yeah.
We need to see growth in the European business. We need to see growth in the Canadian business. They have the pipes for the D9 hemp beverage business that I'm sure will spur revenue sooner or later. But alcohol revenue jumping 36% when alcohol and beer is going down into the left or down into the right as a national trend in the United States doesn't excite me. I'm very excited to run into the numbers with Erwin. But yeah, it was another quarter with a big loss and nothing really to boot with the cannabis side of the business.
It's a common theme we keep hearing for a lot of companies right now, right?
Yeah. Well, Trulieve put their 2025 presentation on their website yesterday. And I mean, that guide actually bodes well for Q4 for Kim. If you want to read between the lines, I think she put mid-single digit growth in the new presentation. I actually had the presentation hyperlinked in the Baked In newsletter this morning. It's definitely something that I would look at, especially if you're a Trulieve shareholder. You kind of want some insight as what the Q4 numbers look like, which then parlays back into what Boris had said on the show on Wednesday, expecting a decent Q4 from Curaleaf, which I'm sure is going to equal light to mid-single digit growth in top line, and hopefully we can still see some margin expansion from Curaleaf. I wouldn't expect to see margin expansion from Trulieve as their margins industry leading, and I don't really think they can go up from where they're at right now as far as gross margin goes.
Well, one thing he did say was 2025 is going to be the year of beverages for this industry, and branding wise, product wise, with the launch of Tilray, like this is going to have to be obviously a focal point. I know Erwin did say, what was it last week on CNBC, that he thinks, I didn't get a chance to see the interview, but did he say rescheduling or legalization he thinks will happen under the Trump administration? Did you guys by chance catch it?
I didn't see it, but I mean, if I'm being pragmatic, I would probably err on the side of rescheduling. I don't think that there is a above 0% chance that Donald Trump legalizes or fully deschedules.
Yeah.
I just don't think I don't think that that's in the realm of possibility. I would love for it to happen. But also, I was talking to Gretchen as well this morning, as for the progress and strategy. And if you expect descheduling or legalization, the emphasis needs to be not on the executive branch or the administrative organizations in the government, such as the DOJ and DEA. The emphasis needs to be on the congressional branch and the legislative branches of government, which we don't really have a focus on right now. SAFE is obviously still doing its safe stuff. I don't see the cannabis industry really penetrating the legislative branches of government anytime soon, unless something seriously changes this year in terms of strategy and capital allocation.
Yeah, and we can talk about that. And we have actually been mentioning this all in all. Our good friend and back-end producer, second producer, Gretchen, she's saying we should take questions from our viewers, which I think is a great idea. Anybody have any questions for us? Anything that, I'm not going to sit here and say that we know the answers to everything, but there's definitely information that if you guys want to ask us that we can reach out to. We did have some interesting conversations too pertaining to the Canadian excise tax this week with one Canadian cannabis executive. And I know there was some rumors. What was the announcement right before Christmas about how the government is going to actually review this? And it's kind of led to a lot of investors in the space hoping that this excise tax could change in 2025. Wow, do we get a dose of reality? It ain't going to happen in 2025, according to some. And in fact, it may not happen for a couple of years. But that really grabbed my attention. But I'm not surprised because there's a lot of messy stuff going on in Canada right now. But for anybody looking at, hoping that the excise tax will change at some point this year, I wouldn't get your hopes up based on some of the conversations that we've had already.
No, I mean, Emma was alluding to potentially a 5-year time horizon on excise tax changing. She was talking about a full conversion of Parliament, a full overhaul of the system, and time horizon wise, she was saying it could potentially take 5 years. As far as I'm concerned,
I didn't want to say 5, but you threw it out there. Here we go.
You said a couple years, 5 years, same shit, to be completely honest. 5, if it does take 5 years, then I mean, it's not part of the conversation really anymore. It's a nice to have way down the road. As far as everything goes.
5 years grabbed my attention. I thought whoa, maybe not this year, but 5 years that really grabbed my attention. Noah, I love your question. When are cannabis stocks going up?
A lot of things we could say there. A lot of things we could say there. I'm going to refrain for the time being.
Yeah. Ty Grower, I know you reached out. I don't know if you missed at the top, but Joe Caltabiano that we were hoping to have on, he had a family emergency and can't make it here this morning, but he is going to come back on a week from today.
Anthony is not holding air
no
anymore. No, that is haven't held air in a while.
Yeah. JT writes, spill the beans on the Mar-a-Lago meeting if you can. I don't know the exact details. All I do know is that the topic of cannabis actually was brought up along with the current healthcare system. Joe's got a tremendous background, having been a co-founder of Cresco Labs. He's got a wealth of knowledge in the cannabis space. He's also focusing on the healing REIT, which is more in the psychedelic space. And I know he's working with Dan Carcilla and Cody Chandra pertaining to that, but I'm sure that was a lot of conversations that were taking place too. And I can't wait to have that conversation because I'd love to know, what are some of the feedback or stances that RFK's talking about? Go ahead.
I'm sure it was a good meeting. I'm sure it was insightful, but I really don't think it's going to be anything more than what we already know. He's in favor of rescheduling. He's in favor of banking. He's in favor of the business aspects of this industry. Getting formalized, streamlined, and strengthened. If anything, I don't understand why, but Trump seems to be a little bit adversarial towards Canada.
Yeah.
If I was speaking with him face to face, I would emphatically lay out the case of the Canadian LPs from a capital market standpoint in the United States are eating our lunch. As far as the MSOs go, they have access to our capital markets. They're in a much less onerous framework than what the U.S. companies are bound by, and the industry is much larger in this country. Something needs to be done from a business standpoint. It needs to be about business. That's it. I think it very, very, very much so needs to be geared towards the business dynamics in this industry.
Yeah. Noah, here's a question. If someone was just now learning about the cannabis space, what advice would you give them about investing in or trading in or staying away for now? It's a good question because there's so many moving parts. If someone were looking at this space right now, some of my feedback would be like, we haven't had anything happen in the last 4 years. Donald Trump has to enter into office.
Whoa.
Well, I don't want to say nothing, but lately, as far as actual legislation that is taking place, nothing has happened. Let's not argue that. As we look here, we're still looking at a Schedule I drug and no safe banking bill has passed. So it's too early to tell, obviously, what's going to happen towards this industry. All I know is like that's what Boris said the other day. Next 2 years are extremely crucial, make or break for this industry, which is why a lot of the large MSOs are going to be writing checks for lobbying efforts. And like you said, does Donald Trump open up his eyes to this industry, get change that actually happens, knowing that the whole angle is an economic angle once this new administration comes in? You want to add something to that? I see a smirk.
I think you got it pretty good.
Yeah. There's Mitch that just wrote, what resources do you need to help push TDR to the next level? That's a great question. So here's like, Anthony's, as you people all know, tremendously smart, intelligent when it comes to the space. You have experience raising money. You've been an investor for quite some time. I became interested in this space when I was working in mainstream television. And one of the reasons why I left the industry is because I knew legacy media was dying. And on top of that, this industry is something that a lot of these legacy media platforms do not want to touch. But the stigma is changing. So yes, I have the contacts when it comes to some of these executives with these media companies. But Mitch, if you know more people, what we need the proper distribution partnership. When I look at Morning Brew and what they were doing, they signed a distribution partnership with Business Insider. And 3-4 years later, I think they were bought out at a valuation of $80 million. Like that's incredible. So I think for us to obviously get to that next level with what we're doing, and then to obviously help all of you viewers that are watching this right now, it's just the proper distribution. We've grown to 40,000 subs, which is pretty strong. We're getting some strong numbers. Our audience numbers have grown over 100% in the last 6 months. So that's encouraging and telling. And we're getting bigger and bigger name guests on. But I think to take that next level from where we are now, I'm happy with the growth, but that next level would be a major distribution opportunity. And hopefully people start to open up their eyes more and more as we start to see some sort of change when it comes to legislation in the US. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Is that it? One word? Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing more to that than I think we would need.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? All right, let's go on to Into the Wire here on topic number 2. And I found this was interesting because I had to read this twice, but interesting story, interesting story short in your state in Florida. This is being identified as a first of its kind ruling in Florida. It was ruled that a drug sniffing dog's alert did not justify police searching a car because the dog could not differentiate between medical marijuana and illegal pot. So, Anthony, maybe explain to our audience why this shouldn't be overlooked and why does this bring, I think, a much larger conversation to light?
Yeah. So, I mean, I found this interesting. It's pretty much common sense that a dog cannot tell the difference between illicit marijuana and medical marijuana. But if we're being real, a police officer or anybody watching this show, if I put flour on the table, cannot tell the difference between illegal marijuana, medical marijuana, and THCA flour. You couldn't tell the difference between it. It's a big problem, not only for law enforcement, but just in general. You cannot tell the difference between these products, whether they're illegal, whether they're legitimate. I might be crazy for doing this, but I kind of just wanted to have a conversation with TSA. I've been flying with a container of D9 hemp-derived gummies in my backpack to see if the TSA finds them and says something about it, just to see what they would say. It says that they're D9 hemp-derived gummies, which are federally legal in this country. but they do contain THC that I'm sure in the eyes of TSA is a federally banned substance, because I would be willing to bet TSA agents and airport security do not know the difference between a hemp-derived Delta-9 THC gummy, a THC gummy that I buy at True Leave, or a THC gummy that I get from a drug dealer on the street in Miami. There is absolutely no difference. Or there is difference in the packaging, but there's no difference in the product. The way that they're talking about the fact that this dog can't tell the difference, law enforcement can't tell the difference if it's just plant material in a bag or if it's joints in a bag. There is no differentiation. However, truly in the eyes of the law, if I have a bunch of pre-rolls and it's THCA flower, that technically is federally legal and they can't arrest me for that. It's just going into the further ridiculousness that we've gone on through this year or last year in 2024 with hemp products coming to light. This should be getting way more coverage than it is, because there's a much larger conversation that needs to be had between differentiating between these products, because there truly is no way to do it.
Yeah, well, if the TSA is watching now, I'm sure you grab their attention based on what you just outlined. But yeah, there is a lot of stuff like that. I remember one time I had, at events, Canada's not really, I don't want, I'm not going to go there, but there has been times where I've had product at
I wouldn't do it crossing the border. I'm not trying to.
No, I realize that, but it's like, I'm not sitting here saying that I would recommend doing that, because I wouldn't, but sometimes you're on a red eye and you're sleepy and you forget there's something within your actual packages. But you're right. It's just like, how are you supposed to? So what's the ramifications from something like this? Like, what needs to change? Like, maybe
I'm assuming the ramifications are law enforcement doesn't differentiate between hemp products, cannabis products, and illegal cannabis products, and they're just enforcing the law in a blanket way, as if it relates to, oh, you have marijuana, I can smell it, well, now I have the right to search and seizure you, or I'm going to confiscate this, and it doesn't matter what really is it, what really is the interpretation of the law. You have cannabis, and oh well. And that being said, I mean, I don't think law enforcement really cares about cannabis anymore, but the fact that you cannot tell the difference whether I had a pound of THCA flower or a pound of flower that I bought from True Leave or a pound of flower that I bought illegally, let's say in California, they can't tell the difference. But in the eyes of the law, fundamentally, the three products have very, very different implications in terms of legality.
Well, I shared this story with you back in November. And again, this is kind of like off topic, but similar to what you're saying. I actually got invited to an event in Detroit with Dutchie early November. And it was just a networking event for anybody in the cannabis industry in the state of Michigan. So I pulled up to the border. They asked me what the name of the event was. And it was called Connections Cannabis Conference. And I said, Connections Conference. So then they Googled it, brought it up. They said, is this a cannabis event? And all of a sudden I could just feel the heat on my face getting a little bit warm. And I was just like, yes. What do you do? Said my company name, typed everything in. And then all of a sudden, 2 minutes later, I had two dogs in my vehicle that were sniffing me everywhere. And I was just like, but I told them flat out, like, I don't consume it. I don't touch it. I'm just a media company that talks about stocks, and all was well. But
well, the funny thing too, is that I've actually talked to a DEA and ATF agent. Those dogs, 99% of them are for bombs and weapons. They can't even smell drugs, unless it's a police canine unit that's specializing, or a border unit that's specializing in drugs. But like I said, 99% of those dogs are predominantly looking for bombs.
Yeah. Man, oh man, there's so much education that needs in this space. We've grown a lot, but there's still, I guess, that stigma. But you know what? We're breaking through it. And I think announcements like this, as we segue into our next one, is a great opportunity to start to shed some of that stuff. And it was announced for Agrify. Everybody keeps talking about this stock and this company. It's been, darling of the space over the last 2-3 months. They announced that they're going to be the exclusive partner for THC hemp-derived beverages at the Salt Shed in Chicago, which is an iconic music venue. Amazing blues played there as well. This is a must. But we talked to Boris on Wednesday about 2025 being the year for beverages for this industry. And an announcement like this morning, Anthony, only backs up with what he's saying, which is great.
Yeah, this is big. I mean, this was been my thesis on beverages. It's why I said beverages were probably going to be the biggest form factor in the space. Um, Experiential. You're going to see cannabis beverages, probably hemp D9 based beverages in sporting arenas, in music venues, at concerts, in movie theaters.
Yeah.
They're going to be an experiential thing. Everywhere alcohol is sold within the next couple of years, you will probably, unless they get regulated out of existence, which I don't think they're going to, everywhere that sells alcohol is going to sell some form of drinkable THC. That's just the trend. The companies understand it. The venues understand it. The brands apparently are understanding it. And that plays into the thesis of why I think Ben bought Senorita.
Yeah.
It's a mocktail with cannabis in it. It's not a seltzer. It's not some huckleberry funk beverage that you're going to drink. It's a easy to interpret, good tasting. I had them last weekend. Gretchen, you couldn't be more wrong there. Beverages will be the biggest form factor in the next 5 years.
Beverages are going nowhere. Why would you say that, Gretchen?
That's completely a fallacy.
Well, to Boris's point on Wednesday, he outlined that when the Farm Bill is amended, that yes, there will be some changes, obviously, to flour, but as you mentioned the other day, he doesn't think anything is going to happen towards beverages, which I think she said.
Yes, Gretchen, you are correct. I do think beverages get that carve out. If there are overarching regulations coming down on hemp, bevs will get the carve out, and they're going to be a main beneficiary of that. That being said, I don't want people to interpret this as I think that MSOs are going to be the beneficiary of a lot of this beverage boom. This isn't going to be traditional cannabis beverages. I think hemp-derived beverages are going to be what is big. Boris is obviously barking up the right tree with the select seltzers. Ben's barking up the right tree with the senoritas. Canopy USA, I think, has it very right with the Wana beverages. The Wana beverages are very good. But the reason why beverages are gaining so much traction, they've been jailbroken from the dispensaries. They don't have to worry about being confined to the dispensary anymore. They're in Total Wine. We're about to talk about them being added to DoorDash. They're in the Panthers arena. They're now at a venue in Chicago that I think is going to have about 145 concerts and roughly 600,000 patrons come through their door on an annual basis. It's going to get bigger. You're going to see them at Rolling Loud. You're going to see them at Ultra. I'm betting that they're going to be at EDC this year. They will be the biggest thing because these companies and the experiential venues are never going to sell combustible flower. Maybe vapes, but drinks are the natural fit for scaling beverages and getting them in with people and entertainment. And I think that is going to be the biggest angle.
Americans love their beverages. And how do you break the stigma? By associating product within pulp culture. And everything you just said is pulp culture, right?
Yeah.
So how do you see this unfolding then? You know, do you see some of these hemp companies going public given the growth? You don't, huh?
This might be controversial, but if I had a successful cannabis business right now, I would stay the hell out of the public markets. I wouldn't want to be in the public markets under any circumstances, especially if I was a profitable cannabis company. You're going to increase your expenses and you're going to be subject to the bogged down nature of the capital markets that a lot of the industry leaders are subject to right now, because going private's not an option. No, I would not go public. I don't expect them to go public. I think the biggest leverage that you're going to be able to get to cannabis beverages from a public standpoint is betting on Tilray, because they do have cannabis beverages and they do have the distribution. They don't have the sales. Agrify, you could argue on a fully diluted basis, is a very rich valuation right now that they're going to have to very much so grow into. So I don't know if I would really be buying it at this price based on the thesis of beverages, or you believe that Curaleaf and Select are going to be one of the larger beverage brands in the country, and Boris gets that right, and it's part of the Curaleaf story. But no, I don't expect to see increased leverage to publicly traded hemp or cannabis beverage companies in the public markets.
Noah writes, if I were hemp and could list in the US, maybe.
Gary, I mean, sure, if I get a NASDAQ listing, yeah.
Yeah. William Jonathan writes, will Ben combine Agrify with GTI at some point, or will it be two separate companies? Ask us that question after you get some sort of legislation announced, because
Yeah, I think that's way too speculative, and that's something that I wouldn't really speculate on unless I heard it straight from Ben.
Irish might be a good start and introduction to 2025, you think? I look at this space and I'm just like, everything you just outlined makes sense. When you look at the trends of consumers, especially 30 and under, and what they're consuming, you throw in a beverage with that, add that to, like you said, Ultra, like that's where everything just blows up. Tomorrowland, all these things. Again,
I also don't know, keying on the beverage thing too, as far as the investability goes right now, it's a little bit scary if you're looking at it from an investor standpoint, because yes, I could deploy capital into these, let's say, nascent brands today.
Yeah.
But Anheuser-Busch, Coca-Cola, Southern Wine and Spirits, these companies, when they want to come in, they're going to come in.
Yeah.
And it's
you
yet
guys
to be determined if they're going to retrofit their mainstream brands into a THC D9 format, or they're going to go buy some of the current beverages in market. And it's going to highly depend on, do those beverages have scale? Are those beverages profitable? And do they have brand equity within the brand of the business? That's a lot to be determined as well.
100%. You know, if you're an alcohol publicly traded company, you're always looking at each quarter and what's forecasted out over the next 5 years when it comes to growth potential. And if they see the stats and data that shows, consumers are gearing towards this industry, which they are, they have their attention. That's just plain and simple. Times change.
Objectively looking at it, I don't know if I would buy, let's say, a can, like buy the business over develop a high noon D9 THC product. To me, that's just common sense. High noon is built for a D9 THC beverage if and when the time comes.
Noah writes, I'm offering exclusive licensing for my fridge for good cannabis beverage companies. You're on a roll this
morning. By the way, Dylan, THC beverages, I really like the Wana strawberry lemonade and the regular lemonade with THCV. The Senorita was pretty good. I've only tried the mango one. The blood orange cardamom can beverages are really good. And Cantrip's orange soda beverages are really good too. I haven't tried the select seltzers yet. I'll probably try them when they come out with this second run.
I saw the setup actually last week at the Panthers game too, and it was busy.
Yeah. So, people are going to buy it. People are going to buy these. Like they're going to. People like THC over alcohol, and people like THC at experiential entertainment events.
By the way, who's ever running that rink, they're smart at the Panthers arena. I walked in, it was probably 70, 75 degrees. I don't know how,
it's freezing.
It's freezing. It's colder than going to a game in Toronto. Like it's freezing. Yeah. And here I am $600 later buying my wife, myself, and my daughter.
And Emilio's right, by the way. The best drinks that I've had are the ones with minor cannabinoids in them, mostly CBG and THCV. Those have been the best ones. To be honest, that's why I like the Wana lemonade and the Wana strawberry lemonade the best.
Yeah. Gretchen, you're working on Project Champions. Curious to see if you can give us an update. Some of the people you've been talking to and some of these sports athletes, but loved obviously the presentation that you had before Christmas and some of the strategies and the disconnect between Washington and local state officials and with the approach that you guys are going to take. But I've been mentioning that in a few shows over the last couple of weeks. The idea is to have some of these town halls and to apply pressures on these different congressmen and senators in Washington based on what your people from your home state are actually outlining. But yeah, I think it's great. And I wish you the best of luck. And hopefully there's a smart strategy in place for legislation. But we got to have you back on relatively soon to talk about some of the things that you guys have planned to push the narrative forward. And we were on that call as well, but I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Gretchen, if you've got, you know what? I'm going to touch on a couple more things, but I'll send you the link. If you've got time, maybe we'll bring you up for about 5 minutes just to talk about some of the names that you've included. If you've got a couple minutes here this morning, but let us know in the comment section. If you are, then I'll push over the link to you. Let's now move. Headline number 4, final story I want to bring up, and yet another story on how cannabis continues to break through the stigma and become more and more mainstream. Delivery service provider DoorDash announced on Thursday that it's expanding its offerings in select states to include hemp-derived THC and CBD products, including gummies and beverages. Why? Due to increased demand, which is great. So, Anthony, the people want their THC and CBD products. This is great.
Yeah, I think this is going to be common practice amongst DoorDash, amongst Uber Eats. Pretty soon, you'll be able to get D9 hemp beverages, D9 hemp products straight through DoorDash, straight through Uber Eats. And it's going to probably lead to dispensaries being able to be delivered through the delivery apps as well. Obviously, that will take a certain security protocols, especially let's say in Florida. You're going to need to be able to check someone's medical card or validate their medical card before the order goes through, much like if you check someone's ID with ordering liquor through the deliveries. But yeah, I mean, I could see a day where I go on my Uber Eats app and let's say I order something from Trulieve for delivery, and they give me that I don't want to call it a dash pass, but I forget what it is, that, oh, you have 7 minutes to add an incremental order from, let's say, Fireman Derek's Bake Shop, or like you can tack food onto this.
Yeah.
I think cannabis will be delivered in an efficient manner through these apps probably in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take some time. It's going to take some comfortability, and it's going to be able, once they can figure out how they can circumvent or reinforce their exposure to liability, which there's a lot with cannabis right now, they'll start delivering this stuff fast.
Well, when you look at like in the state of Michigan, it's both medically and recreationally legalized, but there are certain people in Michigan, a lot of people that have jobs that if they consume cannabis, they could be fired from their jobs. So with that, try getting somebody into a dispensary like that. That's some of the challenges that the industry faces. And we talk about these beverages being available at, say, like a Publix. That's going to be a lot more welcoming for people to buy a lot of this product. Outside of beverages, when we look at gummies, do you see gummies being sold in some of these brick and mortar stores, well-known stores versus dispensaries of the future? No?
They appeal to kids.
Yeah, I hear you.
Gummies appeal to kids. I don't know. I think that still is a liability. If they do sell gummies at brick and mortar, let's say like a Publix, it's going to be behind the counter with customer service where they keep the tobacco products moving forward.
Makes sense.
It's probably going to also at C-store be behind the counter in locked up boxes like you also see hemp products right now. I think there's a lot of logistics and unknowns about liability as it relates to that. But yes, I do think we get there sooner or later. I also do think we're going to get into there's going to be a point in time when gummies come under fire. It's candy infused with THC. You could argue, and I love the form factor. The form factor has been validated. Cannabis companies sell a lot of gummies, and cannabis companies sell gummies in a responsible manner with childproof packaging. And obviously they're not marketing it to kids, but at the same time, it's candy that's infused with THC. It's the one product, I think, in the product form factors of cannabis that the mainstream could potentially have a problem with.
Like, you think some kind of effect like Juul had with the whole vaping black market from China, like that type of.
It's not that. I mean, kids like candy.
I know they do.
Kids like sweets. It's a catch-22. I think it's I've never understood why we just don't shift to, let's say, soft gels, because really people aren't eating gummies for the flavor. People are eating gummies for the effect. And if I'm eating a 10 milligram gummy, I'm definitely, let's say I get a pack of Juanas and the yuzu melon gummies are really good, I'm not going to sit there and just eat a couple of them because I know it's going to get me super stoned. I just want the 10 milligram dosage. So yes, I also could see us going over, like I said, to a soft gel or some sort of just boring form factor to where you're getting your 10 milligrams of THC and you're off to the races.
Makes sense. And how I've already saying here, Irish writes similar to cigarettes. Nina Barron writes no DEA. We have a problem. What's the other one? Gas stations locked, says Emilio. You're right. It's not like walking into the CVS. That's CVS, by the way, in the A1A right in Lauderdale. Holy Jesus, man. You could go there at midnight and that's like, feels like a concert's going on. But yeah, you're not going down aisle 4 to pick up beer and then at the same time turn around and 3/4 of the way up, grab a packet of gummies. Yeah, Gretchen, I did send you the link. I don't know if you got it or not, but feel free to hop on real quick if you want to give us an update just with some of the people that you're recruiting for. I don't want to say lobbying, but you can correct me with that wording if you were to have a chance to come on. I think I sent you that. Yeah, I sent you the email. Any other questions that people want to ask? I was thinking about having Dan from the Chart Guys on, but this industry right now is just... it's bleeding, but it's wait and see mode, knowing what's about to happen in Washington in the next week and a half. Let me look to see if there's any more interesting questions here. Jeffrey Mills says, all Simon keeps saying conference call after conference call is, quote, I don't like where the share price is. Well, long-term Tilray investors don't appreciate where his salary's at. There's some frustration. I can see that right now with what people are saying with regard, but that's kind of like where we're at right now at this space. It's just like you've got a 280E tax in the US, you've got an excise tax in Canada, and there's a lot of legislation that needs to happen in the US because we all know that's where the opportunity. So I can understand how people are venting and frustrated right now, but it's hurry up and wait right now in this industry, right?
Yeah. Also, Brandon or whoever this is on Twitter that's right now making comments about not keeping Boris accountable. You obviously didn't listen to the segment and you sure as hell didn't get the takeaways because no one said that the smaller operators are going to cause price wars in Florida. We alluded and he alluded to Kim having price wars in Florida. Also, the heavy discounting is not months. It was just December and there could be seasonality there, which is why we didn't approach it. If Q4 doesn't wind up being how he alluded to, with a decent quarter as well as margins coming out of Florida, then we'll have a conversation about it. But that's the reason why we didn't compound what Brady had said on the show prior, because there were not a lot of specifics around it in terms of seasonality and to what the actual discounting was. So I really would appreciate not knocking the credibility of the platform if you don't even understand what you were listening to in the segment from Wednesday. But that's kind of par for the course usually with these keyboard warriors on Twitter.
Noah writes again, what are the odds the DEA is testifying on January 21st? And I obviously assume that's pertaining to
they'll be there. They're not going to get disqualified from the hearing. I mean, as much as we want to, or as much as they probably should, if we do think that they truly are not a proponent of the rule and they're acting in bad faith, they're not going to get disqualified.
Yeah. Gretchen Gailey, she heads up Project Champion, has a lot of great initiatives to push the narrative forward for cannabis here in 2025 to representatives in Washington, but it's not necessarily going into Washington. She has a different strategy. So with that, let's welcome her in and find out what that strategy is. Good to see you. How are things?
Hey, Happy New Year.
Good to you. Happy New Year to you as well. Listen, we were on a call with you guys, and I think it's important for our audience just to kind of know, but there was some interesting stuff that we heard from Rick about instead of going directly at a lot of these senators in Washington, what grabs their attention more than anything is their constituents back in their home states. So with that, maybe outline some of the strategies that you have in play with some of these town halls in individual states, but kind of like going through the back door to really get a lot of these people's attentions in Washington and why you think this could work.
Sure. What we really think is a good approach to dealing with Washington is hitting them where it hurts, which is at the ballot box. And you only do that through your constituencies. Right. You need these people to be the ones who are going to vote in or out their members. And that's what truly scares them is reelection. That's all these people live for is reelection. And I know that might sound a bit cynical, but that's typically how DC operates.
Yeah.
So we've been looking at two things really for upcoming for 2025. On the federal side, we've been looking at safe banking and the new makeup of the banking committee, which does not thrill me. Losing Steve Daines off the committee, that's a huge hit for us.
Yeah.
We only have 2 Republican co-sponsors still on the committee. And we got a lot of prohibitionists now who've been added to the Republican side. So there needs some work to be done there. As for folks that are up for re-election on the committee, there's Rounds, Tillis, and Haggerty, who all voted against safe banking this past year. Those are folks we would absolutely go after in their states. And so instead of being on the Hill talking to them specifically about cannabis, we want to talk to their constituencies in their states and get those people to be the ones to reach out to those members and say, this is what I want. And if you don't want to get on board with what we're looking to do, then we're going to vote in a new member. And we think that is truly the way to get through to the Senate, which has to be done. I love everyone who's very optimistic about Trump. Maybe he is on board. He's done one tweet. I don't know where all of this idea is that he is the savior of cannabis is coming from. But when it comes to regulations and laws, it all has to go through Congress.
Yeah.
You can't do executive orders. It'll be helpful if he's on board because Biden wasn't on board. We need semi on board. And I would say that's what you're getting from Trump is semi on board.
How much
keep working on Congress?
So, Gretchen, based on a lot of people and constituents you speak to in various states, like, what do you think? What kind of support, if you start organizing some of these town halls in, say, Pennsylvania or other states, like, wherever? But I'm just thinking out loud, like, what are you anticipating? What kind of support, and how do you leverage that? And this obviously segues into some of the athletes that you are planning to bring in.
Sure. So when we've seen the polling across the board, cannabis has always been an issue that is bipartisan, that the people want. It's just the lawmakers don't want it. So what we see by doing these town halls is helping to educate a lot of people on the state level and to also educate these members on what is actually involved with the industry and how it all operates. So many of them are, putting laws together for businesses they've never set foot in. They've never seen a grow. Yeah, they've never talked to a patient. Yeah. They don't understand how this operates. They don't understand because I'm some kid in a dispensary being a bud tender, I can't get a mortgage on a house. That doesn't.
But do they care about that?
They do care. And so one thing that I think is perhaps the wrong route to go with safe banking is the idea of pushing that law and order is what's going to turn Republicans. Republicans like money. No. They like mortgages. They understand that. In the back of their minds, you have to remember these guys are all old. They're all reefer madness. They're all judging us for being in cannabis and thinking, oh, if you got shot working in a dispensary, that's your own fault because you're working in a dispensary. They are not thinking, oh, woe is me. We need to protect these businesses. But they understand people who can't get mortgages, who can't bank, who can't pay their taxes, who can't actually give more money to them and to the banks, who are the people that they really like, not us. So that's what they will get on board with.
So when we were in Washington, I think people should know this. Granted, it was great as far as you guys giving us access, but one of the key things that grabbed even more attention why we were able to have access to some of these senators in the hallways was Jim McMahon and Ricky Williams being there. So they would stop, they would pause. They saw us kind of hanging out with them. They gave us time to actually talk. So you're working on a list, and this is, like I said, going through the back door, going to those individual states. Who are some of the notable names outside of Ricky that you're speaking to that you plan to leverage to create more awareness towards this whole initiative?
Well, I have quite the roster of names, and I don't want to reveal them all. But we have about 50 athletes that that are cannabis friendly, involved in the industry, that we've spoken to, who do have an interest in the space. Right now, I'm working on specifically Pennsylvania and the adult use initiative there because I see it almost as a microcosm of what we are working on in DC. You have a heavily Republican Senate. You have a House that's divided by one seat. It's if we can get it done there, which we have to do, you have to do it legislatively. You can't do it through a ballot initiative in Pennsylvania. Then that may demonstrate to people on the federal level what we're trying to achieve. And so we're going to put pressure on 4 senators in that space who we believe are really kind of holding up things in the Pennsylvania legislature to try and get adult use across the line. And we're going to do that with various athletes who have ties to Pennsylvania. We have a handful of Steelers, some Eagles, former Eagles, and a really big 76er who I don't want to divulge yet, but if you have any interest in cannabis, you may know who that is.
Does he have a wicked crossover?
Perhaps. However, truly, I have not got the final sign off for him in. So I don't want to put his name out there until I can get a yes, he is going to show up and do stuff.
Listen,
but these are all people who have an interest in the space. And the way we also look at celebrity is people hate when celebrities get on stage at award shows and say, oh, you know, try and put out their political views. Drives them nuts. But when athletes who actually use the product, like cannabis, use it for pain, use it for recovery, these guys are all local heroes. I mean, no one's looking at them as this is something they should not be talking about.
So do you think that's why someone like a Snoop Dogg has stayed away from this? Because like you said, when celebrities start getting into politics, it's like, okay, been there, done that. We've seen this rodeo before.
But Snoop's got successful Snoop's untouchable. He's also got successful ventures in California, and he's been venture investing in this space for a while. Snoop. I don't think he's smart enough. He's probably taken the Michael Jordan approach of Republicans buy sneakers too.
That all makes sense, but at the same time too, I think that'd be amplified with what he does and what he represents and the opportunities that could bring to him if there was actually legislation. Let's not kid ourselves, but
sure. I think when it comes to celebrities and like certain topics that they have no actual relationship to.
Yeah.
And not to say that Kim Kardashian doesn't love prisoners and stuff, but when she shows up to the White House and says, you need to let these guys out of jail, or Kanye is walking over to see Trump. I mean, Kanye's got his own issues. But people are just like, well, what the hell? Yeah.
Martha Stewart is who we need to send to the Dirksen building and who we need to send to the Capitol.
I don't know if old white men are going to relate well to Martha. They already threw her in jail once. I don't know.
That documentary
all those politicians are probably doing exactly what Martha did to land herself in jail. So there might be a point of
ask Martha what she thinks of James Comey. Did you watch that documentary on Netflix of her?
I did.
Wow, holy cow!
Oh, you have.
By the way, there's a Jerry Springer documentary on.
Started watching that a little bit.
Yeah,
that one.
Did you watch the McMahon one, the WWE one?
Phenomenal. Yes. That man, not phenomenal as in like, I think of the world, like that's billionaires are not nice people. A lot of them aren't. They got to be cutthroat business people. And that's exactly what he was. But that was a good one. But yeah, with Martha, I know Gretchen, we were in the summertime and Anthony and I were in Toronto. And we were speaking to Bruce Linton, and he was talking about how he had Martha Stewart up to the Smith Falls location with Canopy. And within 20 minutes of walking around, she came up with 15 different ideas on how to retrofit the entire facility itself to make it more effective. And he's just like smartest person I ever came across. But for all of our viewers out there, if you haven't gotten a chance to actually watch this documentary, it gives you a real good idea of the business sense Martha Stewart is. And she is like, you know, in business, sometimes you've got high expectations of not only yourself, but the people that are working within your company. And she's all that and more. But it was interesting to see why she got charged. And that old white boys club, James Comey, does not have very nice words to say about him whatsoever. She thought it was absolute bullshit, which judging by it really was.
She had to fall on her sword.
She did.
It was BS.
It was the name.
She took it. I don't want to say she took it like a man, but she took it in stride, and
she managed to come out on top after it.
She's still Martha.
I mean, who gets off the plane after jail with her poncho she made with like a shiv, and poncho sales go through the roof? I mean,
she actually had to go into solitary for 24 hours, like on the first or second day. She was talking to a security guard or something like that. And after it was done, she kind of like just chuckled and laughed. It was a nice conversation. And she actually touched the security guard's shoulder. Foreman called her in, basically said no food, no nothing for basically 24 hours. And I don't care if it's only 24 hours. If you're out there successful running a business, next thing you know, there's all this stuff that basically, you know, insider trading with what she went to jail with. And then further that, you're now in jail and, you've got 24 hours of solitary. I think that would definitely be a reality check, a little overwhelming to say the least.
To say the least, yeah.
Well, and she said her friendship with Snoop that really developed a lot more after.
They said, it was like her biggest comeback was the Justin Bieber roast. And
so, Gretchen, you had mentioned the emphasis on, let's say, 4 senators in PA. Yes. Do you need to engage the governor as well?
No,
to make
not
sure.
At all.
No. Okay.
Shapiro is very on board with cannabis. He has his budget address coming up in a few weeks where he is actually going to have cannabis in there as a line item because Pennsylvania needs the money. Like so many states out there, their surplus is drying up and they need the revenue. And he's watching it go out the door to New Jersey, to Maryland, to New York. Yeah. He is to Ohio. He is surrounded by states that all have adult use, except for West Virginia. But no one likes West Virginia anyway.
Okay. So before we let you go, one last thing. We talked about the strategy, but the short list of names, the people that you want to grab attention to, remind us again who they are pertaining to this whole strategy that you want to execute.
When it comes to safe banking, we are going to do a big focus on Tim Scott. Obviously, he needs to be turned, especially being chairman now. We got Haggerty, we got Rounds, and we got Tillis on the federal side. When it comes to Pennsylvania, Kim Ward is atop my list. She is the president, Senate pro temp there. I'm trying to remember who the other 3 guys are. 2 of them, they're from the central side of the state, and then the other folks are around Pittsburgh. One thing that we need to really focus on in Pennsylvania, they keep coming up with this dumb idea, which I'm pretty sure is going to go away, to put cannabis into the state stores. And for those who aren't familiar with the antiquated laws of Pennsylvania, state stores are where you buy your liquor, and only liquor. You can't buy wine, you can't buy beer. We got to go to 4 different places to purchase alcohol in Pennsylvania. But they thought that would be a great idea, and for the state to actually run the industry. And it's been shot down a lot, but they keep proposing it, and they keep trying to kill the state stores on top of that. So we don't want cannabis associated with that to begin with.
Is there a bill? Is there a bill that's favored right now? Like the Street Laughlin bill, or I think Bill 251 was also brought out there. Is there a certain vehicle to get this done? Do you think it's going to be kind of like a hodgepodge of like what everyone's brought to light mixed into one new bill?
There is a bill out there, and it's going to come to light in the next few weeks. All of this is kind of hinging upon Shapiro and his budget proposal. It's all going to be dropped shortly. If Pennsylvania can get their act together, and I mean, like we keep hearing about the MSOs and everybody's who on board and messaging together, they need to focus their attention on Pennsylvania. They need to actually try and get this done. And I'm not saying pay lobbyists. I'm talking about advertisements, doing op-eds, earned media, getting people out there to move the vote, because that's what members care about. Just putting money into a PAC and hoping to influence somebody when we don't have nearly the amount of money that you need to put into a PAC to really influence. It's just stupid. It's ridiculous. It's not going to get us anywhere.
The light just went off. If they have all this, like what Kim was doing, to draw attention towards yes on 3 leading up to the election, but you're going against a governor that did not want this to pass, whereas it'd be a lot more accommodating if you were to come up with the same strategy, not spend as much money, but still a strategy in some sort of level in a state where a governor actually supports it. Why wouldn't you do that?
And honestly, the other thing that the athletes bring to the table is their cachet, their celebrity. They get us earned media for free. You know, Ricky Williams, what are you doing here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania? Why are you here talking to people? Why are you doing a town hall event at this VFW down the road where, 100 people live? It's like, because we got to talk about cannabis.
You know who's been on fire on Twitter the last couple of weeks is Antonio Brown. He has been
Antonio.
All over the place. Speaking of a Pittsburgh great. Might do more harm than good, but he's got a megaphone on him right now.
He does.
Yeah. I know his agents. If you want to get him on board.
Antonio gets mixed reviews when it comes to Pittsburgh, given how he left. So.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I forgot about how he left.
He is not the most beloved. And I know this is crazy, but like I'm a Penn Stater. And so I was sad to see them lose last night. But then I was like, all right, now we can start to focus on cannabis because the whole state has been on freaking hold, waiting for these guys to go to the national championship. I'm like, all right, now can we
I bet on Penn State. I thought they were going to win. They should have won.
Dude.
Well, I don't know why they just
fall
didn't.
Short.
Should have just ran that quarterback more. He was a behemoth, strong, but 10-0. I thought for sure this game's over. I didn't really think Notre Dame had much of an offense based on Penn State's D, but halftime adjustments, that's for sure.
Yeah. They got damn good coach, Notre Dame.
Yeah. Yes. And I thought the way he handled himself in that post-game interview was amazing. I have a lot of respect for him. I did.
I did a lot of eye rolling during that interview.
I was glad he completely.
I'm glad he gave credit to his team and that he's a bum, and I got it, but still, half of it drove me nuts.
Noah writes that the Dales report should do a capital raise. If we did a capital raise and all you viewers became like a part owner of this company, is that something that would interest you? Let us know. Give us some feedback as we look to grow to that next level. As well, Anthony and I and our team are basically discussing a few other elements that we would like to create in this platform, but what we're thinking of doing is having some premium content that would be actually a subscription-based model. We're looking at like $9.99 per month. If we were to create some premium content with representatives from Washington and stuff like that, we want to reach out to you, the viewers, first before we launch something like this. Is this something that you would pay and find beneficial? Obviously, we want to grow. We want to keep doing what we're doing. Given the times that we're in with this industry, we want to continue to keep doing what we're doing. And get this industry to grow because we all know this next year is going to be very, very crucial for this space. It's make or break year. So let us know as we like to keep the lights on and grow and expand. If that's something that you would be open to, we'd love to get your feedback and hear what you have to say. Very much appreciate it. And if so, what are some of the things that you would actually feel the value of paying a monthly subscription if we included in that? Again, anything that you want to let us know, we'd love to hear from you today. Gary, Texas Longhorns are winning today. I think you're wrong there, buddy.
Ohio State whoops that ass.
I think Ohio State wins by 14.
I hope they go down in a fiery plane crash.
Whoa.
Ohio State.
Whoa. I hate Ohio State too, but I think they're much, much better than Texas.
No, I have to align with Ricky. I'm going to be supporting Texas.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about Mr. Heisman.
Yeah. Okay. Jamie Kaiser said we couldn't hear Joe today. Did he allude to Trump's opinion? All I know is that the topic of cannabis was brought up. So all I ask is that just please be patient. He had, like I said, a family emergency, and I totally respect that, and I'm sure all of you do as well. But he'll be on next Friday. We got a lot coming up next week. We've got Erwin Simon from Tilray coming on next week, as well as Shane Pennington to talk about this announcement regarding Village Farms. And then we've got Joe on as well. So we got a banger of a week coming up again as we get closer. And then I might be in Washington next week as well. And Don Murphy just texted me during this show that there's now a hearing next Thursday morning at 10 a.m. with Attorney General Pam Bondi. So going to work out some things there. What's that?
That's her confirmation hearing.
That's at 10:15. So
yeah.
She's going to reschedule cannabis as soon as she's confirmed.
I got to get my microphone in front of her.
Yeah. I'm joking, by the way.
Guap, I know you're listening, buddy. But Guap, fire up that old station wagon. We might be heading to Washington to do some filming.
You better bring your long johns. It's cold here.
It's real cold where I'm at. So anyways, get that back porch set up, Gretchen, after we're all done for the day. And we'll talk cannabis and big story ideas and then strategize when we're in the nation's capital. But in the meantime, to both of you, great show here today. I didn't know what we're going to talk about. We're an hour in, so it's time to go. As usual, make sure to scan that QR code and subscribe to our Baked In newsletter to stay up to date on all the latest information regarding earnings, regarding what's going to happen with some of these stocks, some of the legislation news, and then just really industry trends that you should be paying attention to here in 2025. There's the QR code, so please scan that. And please, as usual, if you haven't done so, smash that like button, leave your comments. Gretchen, Anthony, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Enjoy your weekend. Hey, everybody. Stay connected here. The latest Traded Black podcast. Another great episode under the belt. What'd y'all think? Do you like what we had to say? Please leave any comments below. And as usual, make sure to subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. Check us out on Apple and Spotify. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to smash that like button, leave some comments, as I said before, and subscribe to our channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everybody, for watching.